if you're like me and you wrestled before you did jiu-jitsu, there's a couple bad habits that wrestlers have that they tend to take into jiu-jitsu. In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple bad habits that wrestlers have that when they come to jiu-jitsu, they really need to clean up or they're going to face the consequences. The first bad habit is stance. In wrestling, we're known for these really low stances, especially in the smaller weight classes, and this exposes you for two things in jiu-jitsu. Number one, if you're like me and you want to go to ADCC trials and eventually ADCC, the matches can range from 8 to 10 to 20 minutes or more, depending on the overtime. Therefore, you don't want to kill your back with this super low stance, and you will kill your back with this super low stance if you're doing it for 20-30 minutes. Instead, I want to have my stance where my knees are bent a little bit, but my chest is up and my head is up a little bit. Again, my knees are bent so I can still lower my level and change my level fast, but I'm not so low that in 30 minutes I'm just going to gas myself out. I get that you're exposing your legs a little bit more, but if you actually understand the rules of ADCC, it really doesn't put you at much more risk for getting taken down. Number two, again, we talked about stance. If I'm in too low of a stance, my partner can just grab my neck, right? Boom. Tap. That's what's going to happen, okay? So we got to get in a higher stance, or a guy like a Pedro Mourinho, Gordon, Ryan, etc., they're going to grab our neck and they're going to choke us. I have been submitted in jiu-jitsu matches, especially early on, because of this issue where I stayed in a super low stance and someone snapped me down in what traditionally in a wrestling match would not be that bad of a position for me, but in a jiu-jitsu match, I was chilling in my low stance, they grabbed my neck, and I was done less than 10 seconds. So let's make sure to have a higher stance. The second thing I want to talk about is in wrestling, we do a lot of low shots, low singles, single legs, etc. Those still work pretty well in jiu-jitsu. The only issue is that we don't have wrestling shoes on, meaning we don't have the ability to keep the maximum grip. I'll show you guys a few examples of what I mean. If I have this guy's leg in the air, in a traditional wrestling match, there's no way this guy's pulling his leg out unless it's some freak circumstance. In a jiu-jitsu match, he points his knee down, he pulls his leg out. This happens all the time. Even if the guy's a much worse wrestler than you, this is going to happen. If I'm in a low singles situation here, this guy can turn that way, kick away, and run, right? So when we're doing our takedowns, we can still do those low takedowns. We can still do the low single. We can still do the single leg. But we need to make sure that we're transitioning above the knee as fast as possible. As far as, for example, I'm here. If I get here, I want to immediately make sure I get my hand above the knee, because now if he turns around and tries to run away, he can't really go anywhere. Same thing with this low single. If I get in this low single, I need to start to make sure I start coming above that knee really quick from that low single. That way, it's much harder for this guy to run away. Again, those are two big differences between wrestling and jiu-jitsu when it comes to takedowns. And these are things that I really wish I knew before coming in. Luckily, I've had time to adapt and adjust. Hopefully, if you're a wrestler and you're doing jiu-jitsu and trying to compete at like a higher level, these tips were helpful. It'll get you a long way if you kind of just let go of some of your old habits and build some new ones.